Good morning. All right. So today we are going to start with profiles, a very important topic. Let me first try to open that diagram. I have one for the profiles. Oh yes, this one. Open with Paint. Yes. All right. So let me first of all introduce this, like where exactly the profile would work, right? See, we understood one thing, that whenever we create a user, inside Salesforce, there are two things which are essential to give him, which cannot be delayed by any fact. A user cannot be created if you don't give him these two things. What are those two things? What are those two entities? The first is license. The second is profile. Giving a role is third thing, which actually is an optional entity. We can give it, or maybe, without giving a role, without assigning a role, we could definitely create a user. But without giving him a profile and without giving him a license, it's entirely is not possible that we can create a user inside Salesforce. So these two things are essentially important. These two things are essentially required whenever you create a user. Now, there are few different forms of profiles, as well as few different forms of licenses as well. And the first thing is like what a user could access, what kind of functionalities is being accessible to this user. That completely depends on the first thing, which actually is license. What type of license he is holding. So one thing, we also have created users like development. And then we also have created users like testing, manager, and a customer user, right? You know this. Out of all these four, these three users, they are holding a platform license, a Salesforce platform license, whereas developer user is having a Salesforce license, right? So platform license, although would guarantee that you could access all of the custom functionalities, include like your custom objects or the custom applications, report types, all right? But when we talk about the standard object, there are only few standard objects like accounts and contacts, documents, tasks, and events, and a few more. But there are only few of the standard objects that this person who is having a platform license, he could access. So see, ultimately, it all depends on what type of license you are holding, what type of license of Salesforce you are having in your user. Now let's consider that there are 5 users, user 1 to user 5, and all of them is having a Salesforce license. All of them is having a Salesforce license. All of them is having a Salesforce. We were having, like, let's say we were having 5 copies of Salesforce license, and we distributed equally to all of the users. So now all these 5 users, they are having a Salesforce license. All right. Now we know one thing, that if they all are having this license, they could access all of the standard applications, custom applications, all of the standard objects, standard tabs, custom object, custom tabs, and every fields and every feature. In short, the one who is having the Salesforce license, all of these 5 users, they could access all of the functionalities, all of the standard functionalities, or as well as all of the custom functionalities, right? Now, I wanted to put a certain restriction. I wanted to put a certain restriction in such a way that the user 1 and user 2, the user 1 and user 2, these two users, they should have access only to the standard functionalities like standard applications, standard objects. All right. User 3 and 4 should have an access to only to the custom functionalities like custom applications or maybe the custom objects. Whereas user number 5 should have an access to everything. He should have the access to all of the standard plus all of the custom. He should have the access to everything. How I'm going to decide this, how I'm going to put this functionality in place, because by default, all of these users, all of these 5 users, they are having Salesforce license. So ideally they could access everything. How exactly I'm going to restrict these users to have an access? For example, this user should not have the access to custom applications or maybe the custom objects, whereas this user should not have the access onto the standard. All right, how exactly I'm going to do this? This everything is being controlled from profile. This everything is being controlled from profile. See, understand. Profiles are the most important and the most powerful tool in the hands of a Salesforce administrator. This is the most important tool. This is the most important tool in the hands of a Salesforce administrator. You can control everything with the profile. Condition to that, you must have a custom profile. You must have a custom profile. See, if you remember one more thing, let me open that diagram as well. I'm telling you guys, the way you have been taught about this, nobody else knows the concepts in such a deep. Why? Because I try to relate everything with my own practical experience. And I'm going to, if I would get the time, I'm going to discuss one thing with you, which probably, I mean, yesterday itself, I came to know about one of the issue and why this was generating. If I would get the time, I'm going to definitely have a discussion on that as well. It all depends how much time I will be getting. Anyways, let me first of all try to stick with the topic. See, you remember one thing. When I told you like how exactly to create a new users, what are the steps of creating a new user? That time we discussed license is something you should give, profile also, but giving a role is something which actually is an optional entity. At the time of creation of a user, we can assign him a role, or we can skip that. And without giving a role, also we could create a user later on in the coming days, in the coming circumstances, in the coming future, we can decide to give him a role. If we give him a role, that's okay. If we don't give him a role, the user again is fully functional. Nothing that's going to make an issue with this user. All right. So this is something which is a really an optional entity. Now, when you're giving a license, the license is for one-time use only. That means when you assign this a license to a user, that license is considered to be consumed. All right. So it all depends. For example, if someone would ask me how many users I could create inside Salesforce, well, this is a most irrelevant question, I feel. Actually, this shouldn't be asked, or maybe, they just wanted to ask is due to certain, what to say, just to check your knowledge on some certain things. So if by the way, they would ask you this in the interview, How many users I could create inside Salesforce? So that completely depends how many license you are having for him. Let's consider if you first of all, this is not the way, even this shouldn't be answered like this. It shouldn't be answered like this. I think when somebody would ask me how many users you could create in Salesforce, I would start my answer by asking him one more clarification. What type of user you are referring to? Because ultimately understand one thing. If I would be creating a user, I must have a license for him, and there are various forms of licenses. So if you would ask me like, how many Salesforce users, how many platform user, how many chatter user, how many community user, how many gold partner, how many silver partner, how many identity user, how many integration user. So this should ideally be your question, but you try to generalize this in a single sentence that how many users we can create. My answer would be how many licenses I'm having for him. If, for example, if let's consider you wanted to create a Salesforce user and we are having 50 license remaining, so obviously I could create maximum 50 users, all right? So that depends completely on the license. The second thing, we have at length discussion on to this. Whenever you are creating a user, you must assign him a profile because that is required one, but nobody tells you to assign the standard profile. And usually I have seen, I witnessed this so many times. Believe me, guys. Believe me. So many times I have seen this. Whenever, people used to create the user, they assign him a standard profile. They assigned him a standard profile. And later on, they face all those consequences. They face those consequences when they wanted to assign them some of the permissions, or they wanted to remove some of the permissions. They were not being able to do that. Why? Because standard profiles are not fully customizable. They are customized. You can edit them, but up to a certain level. And the most important type of permissions, like if you remember this, I'm not opening that page because we are going to learn that right now. The whole topic is about profile. I'm obviously coming to that user interface. First of all, let me complete the discussion over here itself. The most important permissions are the permissions like administrative permissions, general user permissions, standard object, and the custom object. These four permissions, which considered to be the most important one, they are in a form of read only when you go and try to edit a standard profile. So this is the reason I told you, whenever, apart from the system admin, you wanted to make somebody a system admin, just give him the standard one. Listen this carefully, mark this word, write it down somewhere. If you wanted somebody in a team should become a system administrator, I'll show you one thing. Let me quickly show you something. Resume the recordings. All right. But apart from this, whenever you are creating a user who's not going to be a sysadmin, always create your custom profile. How? There's only one way. There is no another way. You cannot create this from the scratch. Understand? If somebody would ask you this interview, can I create a custom profile without cloning a standard one? That means you wanted to start a profile. You wanted to start creating a profile from the scratch, from the zero. Answer is no. No, there's no way. There's no way in Salesforce that you could create a custom profile without cloning. Custom profiles can only be created by cloning a standard profile. This is the only way to create a custom profile. Now, when you created a custom profile, you can give this to the user. And when you give him a custom profile, you have a full control over there. All right, that was all we already had studied. Why I'm repeating all this? Because in the beginning itself, I told you one thing. Profiles are the most important tool in the hands of an administrator. At the hands of the administrator, this is the most important tool. You can control everything. You can control everything, not just about user. Don't think a profile would only provide you controls of the user. No, there are so many others, so many other things as well. Permissions related to the organization, how the organization would behave, how the applications would behave, how the objects would behave, how the fields would behave, how your automation would behave, how your reports would behave, even your coding part as well. You can control everything with the profiles. So understand how much gravity profile is holding, how much important is this topic called profile. It's a nuclear bomb. All right, this is the most, the most expensive thing what you're going to learn. I think the most expensive thing in the world is something called as a black antimatter. I don't know whether you read this or not. I mean, if you are a person who was from the science background, we know one thing. In the core of every material, there is something called as nucleus, right? And nucleus have two things, electrons and protons. Electrons carries the negative charge, protons carry positive charge, and they are revolving around a center body called as nucleus. This is universal truth. But do you know scientists recently have invented a matter which is called as antimatter, and the entire physics of antimatter is different. Antimatter, there is again a nucleus which doesn't have any charge. But the protons there are having negative and electrons are positive. That's completely a different thing. And this is the reason, which motivates the people to understand, yes, there is a parallel universe. There's a parallel universe. But everything is different in parallel universe, which is positive over here, seems to be negative over there. All right, there's a long study. Anyways, that is the most expensive thing. But after that, there's uranium. Uranium is the most expensive thing. So this is the most expensive thing in your hand. Profiles are the most expensive thing in your hand. You can do everything with the profiles. All right. So this is what we are going to learn. Now, probably every one of you had understand what you guys are, going to learn, what I'm going to start with. And I'll tell you one more thing. It's not possible for me or for everyone to entirely cover this topic. I would try to cover what to say. Most of the important permissions inside profile, but it's very vast. I can show you. And it's all a matter of, the experience, like how you grow, how you start working with this. For example, this is a profile which I have created, 208 profile. When I try to edit this, you can see there are so many things. I would try to cover as many as possible, but there are so many things in profile. And learning every permission is merely not possible. Even very honestly, I also don't know every permissions from here. It all depends, like, as and when it's required. As and when. Yesterday itself, I was trying to search something. I just don't have that. ChatGPT is a good thing, by the way. So, I also don't have a knowledge of every permission over here, very honestly. So that actually depends, that actually depends when you start working. And what kind of the task, what kind of what kind of requirement you are having, you would going to decide which permission, which permission from the profile you have to enable or disable. What is it? So profile is really a very vast topic, and it takes time. It takes lots of time if you really wanted to study every single permission, which actually is not possible for us right now, but we'll try to cover most of them. But then if something, if something is not being covered, it's always like, you'll have to Google this, that this is my, and you can take the help of ChatGPT. This is a very intelligent tool. I'm telling you, I started using this for so many things. And one big announcement from the Salesforce that in coming days, Salesforce is coming This process is under developing, and even the beta version also has not been announced so far. But Salesforce has started constructing an application, a product, a tool called Einstein GPT, which is going to replace ChatGPT for Salesforce part at least. ChatGPT works for every technology. Einstein GPT will obviously will make all searches precisely to the Salesforce. So very soon in the coming days, we are going to see one more product called Einstein GPT. Anyways, so this profile is very big, and it's entirely not possible for me, for anybody, for you. So this is a discussion. We should take it after learning this, after learning the few basic things. We should take it, and if we could spend some more time into this, and we can ask the Google or maybe the Chat GPT for this. Okay, what this permission is actually used, what this permission is actually used. So this is something, or you can simply skip this part for now. And as and when you will got a requirement and you feel that there must be something in the profile for this, so that time you can start your search for this as well. All right. So this, guys, this is what is a profile. There are so many. Go with this all. Go with just study with this. We can specify applications, tabs, and everything. I'll just try to start with something. All right. Go with this all. Please, whenever I start any topic, I really don't have the time to read the theories and all. And I never do this. I never try to study line by line and then try to explain you. I'll never do that. But this is something what I always recommended. Whatever has been written, you should at least go once with this theory when you would revise this topic. All right, so we can specify the how or what users can access what type of applications. Now, let me do something. I'll just go back with this and see. I'll show you something. Now, if I go, for example, I'll do everything with the development user because he's holding a Salesforce license and he's having the access on everything. When a person is having the access on everything, all right. So we could how we could restrict the visibility on the certain things. So let's do that. So whatever the example I'm going to illustrate over here, I would be doing everything on the development user. Now see, if I would make a login, and if you see, he's right now, what about the objects? He's having the access on every objects, right? And if I go with the applications, you can see 208 HR management and Merck Incorporation. These are some of the custom applications, and service sales, service marketing, all these are the standard applications. So this actually indicates to me that this user is having an access to the standard as well as the custom application. Let me now first of all show you something like how we can restrict the users to have the access over the applications, which right now you can see that he's having the access on everything. All right, he's having the access on everything. Let me make a logout from here. Let me make a logout. And now I'll just go to the profile of him. I'll just go to the profile of development user. He's having a 208 standard user profile I have given to him. I will go with edit. And do you see this custom app setting? Now you can see in the custom app setting, people usually confuse themselves by understanding all of these settings are related to custom app. No. Understand one thing. Custom app, we only have 208 and Merck Incorporation as custom application. But there are so many other names as well, like sales and all that. These are standard application. If you also get confused with a name called custom app setting, understand one thing. It doesn't reflect exactly custom application. It is application. And then you can customize. You can customize the application settings. When I say application, it includes everything, isn't it? When I say application, it includes everything. Standard and the custom one, both of them, right? And when I say customize, it means you can do the editing, you can decide by your own, and you can make the changes in certain things. That is something called as customization. So this actually means customized the application settings. This is not exactly custom app. All right, chalo. So I should give him the access only to the custom applications, and I'm removing every other thing. See, I just keep 208 HR management, and I'm making this as a default one. I'm removing every other permission from him. So now what is going to be happen from this onward? This user development would only have the access to 208 HR management, which actually is a custom application, and the Merck incorporation. Is not going to have the access on any another application. Once I did the changes, let me now save this. I save this, I go back, and I make a login once again. Now, when I make a login to this user, see, he can only have the access to 08 HR management. And these are not applications, these are communities, by the way. All right. These are communities. All right. These are not applications. So all of the standard application, the access to all of the standard applications has been removed. And he could only have the access to the custom application. So this is the first thing. What we just have learned, what we learned. Come on, what we learn. Oh, let me give you this command. Let's make this session more interactive. Yeah, I have given you the command. Tell me what you just have learned. Come on.
What permission should we give?
No. What type of applications he could have the access? This is what we have done. I know I have been logged out. So we just learned about that how we can control the accessibility over applications for a user. We can decide what application, maybe standard or custom. See, I can, once again, I can do these changes. If I'll go back to the profiles, and once again, if I would edit this 208 standard user profile, and I go with the edit, and you see there is only one 208, HR management and marketing corporation. Let me now give him a sales, and then standard sales. And I'm also giving him standard marketing, and then a standard service. Where is that? Analytics, app launcher, bold solution, content, data manager, digital experiences. I shall give this as well to him. Lightning app user queue management, sales console, Salesforce chatter, service console. I'm giving him service as well. All right. So now I have given him these permissions. When I would save this, and I'll go back to this user, make a login. And let's now see how much he could access. See, sales, service, and the marketing. All right. Now he could access this. So what we just have learned is what type of applications user can access. We can make a control over that as well with the help of profile. All right. That was the first thing. Now, second is about the access to the tabs and the objects. Access to the tabs and the object. I'm thinking to take this today or tomorrow. I take it tomorrow because I have one important thing to discuss, you guys. All right. I have one important thing which I feel ये बताना ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है.